Imagine this. You've recently separated, you've been married a long time, and you are back out on the dating scene for the first time in years. And your friends, they are awesome people, they are supportive of you, they've been there through thick and thin, and they want to get you back out on the scene, so they try to set you up on a date. And they start asking about your preferences for a potential partner. What are you looking for? What do you like? What don't you like? They're trying to help you figure out who you might want to date. And so your friends say, what are you looking for? And you start, with the basics, right? Age, income, location. Is that how you go about it? I am looking for a male, 45. I'm looking for a female, 52, who lives in this postal code, who has this income, who has this background. Is that how you go about it? Not at all. None of that information helps you in finding a potential partner, a potential mate, someone you want to spend time with. What would maybe help you? I don't know, things like interests, right? Are you interested in the same thing? Do you have shared interests? Do you have shared values? Do you have shared goals? Do you guys like the same things? Will you spend time together? All of that stuff is far more relevant and far more interesting than demographics, right? Now, just think about how ridiculous that story is, and think about the parallels between you and your business and how you target your prospects. Think about your advertising, your marketing, your salespeople. Demographics are interesting. They're interesting, but they don't give you the most insight for what you're really looking for. To find the perfect match, whether we're talking about dating or we're talking about prospecting in business, you need to go deeper. You need to know much, much more about those you're going after. And that's exactly what we're going to explore with today's guest, Marcus Collins. Now, Marcus is a clinical professor at Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. He's also the best-selling author of the book For the Culture, which really challenges those of us who do market and do sales within our organizations to consider how culture shapes our customers' behaviors and the decisions that they make. And on top of all that, he's a seasoned chief strategy officer. He's won a ton of awards. I have a huge list in front of me, but some of them off the top, Ad Age's 40 Under 40 recipient. He was Crane's Business 40 Under 40 recipient for that. He's won Thinker's 50 Radar Distinguished Achievement Award, a whole bunch of awards. Now, here's a few more interesting things about today's guest, Marcus. Before he started working in advertising, he worked in the music and tech sector as a startup co-founder. Then he led the iTunes Plus Nike sports music initiatives at Apple. And on his resume, he also ran digital strategy for Beyonce. So Marcus is certainly someone who's super experienced. And as you will hear, I had a ton of fun in this conversation. And part of that is because Marcus really believes that culture is the biggest influence for how each of us and all of our customers behave and make decisions. I think this is a conversation that every single business owner, every single CEO, every single business development professional needs to hear. So welcome to How to Sell More, the sales podcast for non-salespeople, where each week we give a masterclass to help ambitious B2B leaders just like you face the number one challenge we all work on and we all struggle with, and that's growing revenue. I'm Mark Drager. Let's get into it. Marcus, you are the author of the book For the Culture, which is getting rave reviews. I've been really, really enjoying it. Admittedly, I have not had a chance to work all the way through it. So I always preface that because I don't want I don't want anyone listening to think I'm just making stuff up. But you're kind of blowing my mind a little bit. I've been in the marketing realm for 20 years. And of course, early on in my career, I was introduced to the idea of segmentation and the power of personas, being able to identify who it is we're targeting. And maybe those are based on demographics. Maybe they're based on psychographics or motivations. Maybe they're based on signals, because you've been able to develop within our businesses, we've been able to develop such strong buying signals and automation to be able to help raise leads to the surface for us. But you suggest that culture is the most powerful, perhaps, of all of these. And so I'd like to just start there. If you can explain the difference for our listeners between personas and demographics and psychographics, and ultimately why you believe culture is the most powerful signal of all, I suppose.
Sure thing. Demographics, they consist of the hardware, right? Age, race, gender, household income, geography, college, education, right? They're things that we can see on the outside for the most part and get a sense of what's what, right? They're very tangible, right? But our behaviors are not predicated on our hardware. They're predicated on our software, right? The beliefs and ideologies that we hold, how we self-identify, these things make up the operating system that govern what people like us do. And as marketers, our job is to get people to move. That's why we go through the entire segmentation process. As Professor Wendell Smith told us in the 1950s, that marketing segmentation is the act of taking a heterogeneous group of people, putting them in homogeneous like clusters where they're more alike than they are different based on some characteristic. And we choose which segment or segments we want to go after based on their proclivity to move, the likelihood that they're going to adopt behavior, right? So we go through this process so that we might get to a better representation of who people are and what they're likely to do. Demographics, while they are descriptive, they are not predictive of what people like us are going to do, right? We'll do, all women love to shop. That's just not true. Right. Or all Black people do something fill in the blank racist. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
but okay. So, and I don't want to bury us too much in this one point, but surely things like household income or zip codes or the areas you choose to live within, around education, the type of industry or company you might be a part of, where you sit maybe within seniority within a company, if we're focusing on B2B, these would fall within the demographic areas. And they're still helpful, are they not?
They're better than nothing. But imagine, Mark, if I said, hey, set you up on a date. She's a millennial.
Household income in a certain zip code doesn't really help me, right?
No, exactly. But like, if I say she's a millennial, enjoy, you go, but what is she like? What is she into? What is she like? You would want more information because that descriptor doesn't do very much. Or she lives in this zip code. And you go, oh, okay, that doesn't help me because we know intuitively that doesn't say a lot about who people are. But as marketers, we cling to that because it's better than nothing. It's better than just kind of looking out in the ether and saying, we're just going to go after people. So demographics are helpful in that way that they're better than nothing. But like, we got to raise the bar beyond that. Then we say, well, let's use psychographics because psychographics give us a better understanding of what people do, right? What their affinities are, what their interests are. And absolutely, 1000%, psychographics are better at describing who people are and gives you a semblance of what they're likely to do. But psychographics are merely byproducts of our cultural subscription. Like what we like, what we listen to, where we go, what we eat, where we vacation, our proclivities are byproducts of how we see the world. And how we see the world is a function of our culture. This is a system of conventions and expectations that demarcate who we are and govern what people like us do. And because of who we are, we see the world a certain way and navigate life a certain way, which means that our psychographics are byproducts of our culture, making culture a far better way to describe people, to segment people. The challenge for marketers, though, is that I can't look at you and go, I know your culture. And therefore, marketers go, but that's too hard. No, too hard. So we just focus on demographics. And you go, okay, that is efficient, but it's not effective. So the idea then is how do we marry effectiveness with efficiency? And our ability to get closer to people based on how they identify and the way they see the world gets us there.
And so help me understand, because I run an agency. You're all day, every day in the weeds of trying to take these frameworks and these concepts and ensure that they're actionable, that we can actually gain insight and strategies and tactics from them, that they're not just interesting. I never want to sit down with a client and go through something where they're like, well, that was interesting. How do we use it? And we go, I don't know. Right. If we're parsing out the difference between psychographics, the idea that we can target prospects and customers through their motivations, their fears, their desires, and elements like that, and culture, like help me understand how we take that next step.
So I would liken it to starting with who are you as an organization, right? So you as an agency, you're representing a client, right? You're representing a company. And you go, okay, so who are you all? How do you see the world? What do you believe? And they go, well, it doesn't matter what we believe. We just have a really great product. And our value propositions are as such that they're better than our competitors. And therefore, people should choose us because our razor's sharper, our battery lasts longer, our car goes faster, right? Or our data stack is far greater than someone else's. But the truth of the matter is that for most people, whether it's B2B or B2C, that most products are parodied. And that is, there isn't great differences in people's minds with regards to your offering and someone else's.
Or even worse, an entrenched status quo situation where your greatest competition is actually just how much work it is to try and move someone to something new.
That's right. No one's ever got fired for hiring IBM. That's the saying, right? And the idea there is that, hey, because that is in our organization, that is acceptable, and the possibilities of getting it wrong are low, and therefore my job security is higher, I'm going to go with that one. So the idea there is that since there is not much difference between products, targeting people based on value propositions alone actually seems like a futile thing. Differentiating myself through that perspective seems actually not that productive. But if I start with, well, what do I believe as a company? How do I see the world? You go, who are the other companies who see the world the way I do? Who believe what I believe? And that's who I target from a B2B perspective. From a B2C perspective, we'd say, who are the people, who are the customers out there who share the same worldview as I do? And those are the people I'm going to go after. And we see brands who operate in both B2B worlds and B2C worlds navigate accordingly. So I'll talk about this in the book. Patagonia is a great example of this. Patagonia believes in climbing clean, right? Reducing their evasiveness on the planet. That's what Patagonia is all about. And that's how they communicate themselves to people who want to buy jackets and fleeces and the like. Put a Patagonia fleece next to a North Face fleece and remove the brand mark. You can't tell the difference. Like, I do this exercise with my students. They cannot tell the difference, even though they're wearing a North Face jacket or a Patagonia jacket. So again, the products are parodied in nature. But as soon as they see the logo, they go, oh yeah, I'm buying the Patagonia one and paying a premium for it because of what it means. Not because of what it is, but because of who I am, what it means for people like me. That's the consumer side. On the B2B side, Patagonia looks at his book of business from the companies that it outfits its merch with, right? Like, so you have like a McKinsey, fleece with a Patagonia logo on it, right? Made by Patagonia. Patagonia looks at his book of business and says, these companies don't see the world the way we do. They do not align to our worldview. So therefore, Patagonia says, we're not going to work with them. Even though that means losing money, they go, I'm not going to work with them. But is there money just...
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. You're touching on such an interesting point, because one of the questions I had, and I was hoping we would touch on this, is the idea of alignment. Mm-hmm. So especially within a service-based business, we have my team, we have our systems, we have our offer or services, productized or otherwise, and then we have our target customers. And maybe there's more facets, but I want to keep it simple. And so when I think of culture, when I think of a cultural alignment, if we go way back in my own career, we built a very entrepreneurial, small, scrappy agency that was bumping up against large, internationally, the Omnicom type subsidiaries. And we were going head to head with them. And sometimes we'd win and sometimes we lost, but we were going after the same kind of corporate Fortune 500 clients.
Yep.
And I didn't quite account for or realize the toll it placed on my team, because I created a team of scrappy entrepreneurial people who worked for an entrepreneur. And then we went out to the world and we did very good work. And I had a great time helping corporate clients. But I was basically asking my team to live in the corporate 500 world, which they chose not to go into. There was a reason why they just chose to work for an entrepreneurial team. Yeah. And it took me about 6 or 7 years to realize this mistake I had made. And it was kind of like grinding down the team. And so I've spent the last few years wondering, and perhaps you can help me with this, and even our listeners, I've spent the last few years wondering whether, as we're building these service-based businesses, we're building our team, it's very tempting to select, to pull off the shelf. I want to target these types of clients because I know my service will do X and Y and Z for them. I know that I'll be able to sell it. I can staff it. I can build it. But I'm wondering whether we build our teams around the people that we want to target and sell to, or whether we target and sell to the people that culturally within our walls we are most aligned with.
I 1000% believe that you target the people who see the world the way you do, because not only would you get the work that you want, but you actually enjoy doing the work with them. I mean, how many times have you pitched a client, you don't have to name any, that you pitched a client and you go, man, that looks so sexy on our website. Oh man, the billings are going to be great for that. You're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to do a lot of work and everyone's going to be happy because we're creating tons and tons of work. And then you work with them and you realize it's a meat grinder. And you go, oh man, our cultures just don't match. That is, the way we see the world is different than the way they see the world. The way they go about operating through the world is actually antithetical to how we go about operating through the world. So the whole time we're just butting heads, and it is miserable. And not only does the work suffer, but your people suffer. And they go, I didn't come here for this. I came here because I believe this. And now I'm working in a way that is antithetical to my beliefs. This is the power of culture. That is not only a way for us to find the right partners that we work with in a B2B perspective, but also helps us identify the right people that we should hire. Like, I believe this. And therefore, as the leader of this organization, this is the North Star that we're guiding towards. You're more inclined to get people who see the world the way you do to be more loyal, to be more sort of operating in their genius when they are in a space and in an environment that facilitates that cultural belief to be manifested in how they work, than someone who's like, I'm just here because it's a good paycheck, or it's close to work, or the benefits are awesome, or this is the next step to the next thing. You're gonna get much more out of the employee who believes than the ones for whom it is convenient. And the same thing goes if you think about the partners that we work with, our clients, that you're more likely to get better work and more enjoyable experience from people who see the world the way you do than people who just pay very well. And though we go, man, but I got to pay the bills. But at what cost?
I know that you've spent a large portion of your career working within the agency space, and you've, the list of your clients are impressive. Your time at Apple, working with them with the integration, McDonald's, State Farm. You also spent time as the head of digital, if I understand this correct, for Beyonce. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious though, because you were also you're a very busy man. You're also a clinical professor at Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. And so this overlap between the theory and the academia and the actual practice, I find fascinating, because I think marketers like myself, strategists like myself, we love the way things should work. Mm-hmm. But then you go into practice and the chaos of, hey, it turns out things don't work the way that we think they should work. Yeah. I find very fascinating. So I'm curious, in terms of your work within the entertainment side of things, in terms of culture, your work on the corporate side of things, in terms of segmentation and culture, or the work that you do working with students, where do you learn the most?
Oh, man. I think I learned the most sitting at the convergence of the two, because just like in the real world, nothing goes as it should. So it's the same with science in the academic world. I go in with the hypotheses based on what I understand in the literature, and then I go in to see reality, and reality doesn't marry that, because there's a new thing, there's a new phenomenon, there's something we don't know, and out of that we're able to acquire new knowledge that is then disseminated. I learn sitting in the gap between academia and practice, because as an academic, I'm studying people who are way smarter than I am, who have really invested themselves in a particular subject matter from which I'm able to glean their brilliance. And as a practitioner, I start to apply that to the world and realize that it's not that the world is acting incorrectly, is that we're applying the wrong theory to the wrong situation, right? We're not using the right causality-based theory to describe a thing. So finding theory and reality fit becomes a big part of what it means to translate one thing from the other. It's like, we'll say things like, all millennials do this. And then we put something in the world and go, why didn't millennials do the thing they're supposed to do? Because they all do that.
Yeah.
As if they acted wrong. It's like, no, your understanding of them were flawed. The theory you used was flawed. And I think as practitioners, this is where we fall down often, because we discount the power of theory. We go, oh, that only works in theory, as if theory doesn't explain everything. Theory is the most accurate explanation of reality. The challenge is that our repertoire of theory is typically anemic, and therefore we apply the wrong theory to the wrong scenario, and those things don't marry up. Being an academic, immersing myself in this world helps me create a better, stronger, wider repertoire of theory, so I can find a closer connection that leads to more predictive outcomes. Is it 100%? Never. But it's those failures that I learn from, and I either gain new knowledge or a better connection between theory and reality.
And so if I'm listening to this and I'm owner operator, or maybe I'm on a marketing or biz dev team and I work for an owner managed business, and I'm listening to this and going, oh, we need to get better. And moving past even the ideas of personas or demographics, but even past psychographics, and look at culture. Maybe we want to build a stronger community. Maybe we want our content marketing to be more effective. Maybe we want to build a following and become a thought leader. Or at the end of the day, maybe we just want our sales team to just go out there and sell more.
Yeah.
How would you recommend we approach this if we're aiming to do those things and understand how we can leverage culture better?
Yeah. Advice would be to understand people better. That's what we're after, understanding people. And whether you're in marketing, business, marketing is all about people. If you understand people, then I argue, do you really understand business? So what we're talking about here is how do we get better at understanding how people see the world, translate the world, and behave accordingly? For me, the biggest cheat code was understanding the behavioral sciences, because it made my understanding of people better. And as a result, I was able to build better teams. We were able to create better work that worked better in the market, and therefore got us better clients. Things become a flywheel in just understanding who people are. So if you want to be a better salesperson, understanding people becomes really great, right? It helps you sort of make connection with folks and then find where their points of friction are. But if people are the labels or the boxes that we put them in only for you, then you always find yourself out of sync. So for owner operators, leaders, managers, executives, we had to start with understanding who people are, not the labels that we put on them, but how they self-identify.
Now, in the work that we do, I always find it so fascinating because half the time, the leaders that we're working with within our brand strategy agency, they have the answers and they know the answers. They've just either never taken the time to sit down and work through it in a structured way. We've never had anyone lead them through a process where they can actually spend a few hours. We're doing this right now with a company where we're spending 6 total hours with the senior executive teams only on putting to paper the different touch points with the different types of people who are involved in their sales process.
Yeah.
So this is very administrative, kind of dull activity. And yet a few hours into it of us going, and what about this person? And where do they come in? And what do they do? And who do they report to? And what do they care about? And how tight are you? And do you understand them? And just asking the same question over and over again as we work through every possible touch point of their entire organization. Oh, surprisingly, we start to see patterns.
Yeah.
They start to go, oh, you know what? It's interesting. And then suddenly now people start to break out to like an A or a B or a C with these little nuances and these little differences. And so I'm always so surprised at either how much people really do understand about their customers and their targets and the work they do, but they just never work through the exercise. Or on the other side, and sorry, I'm laughing. And on the other side, where they have no idea because they don't spend any time talking to customers ever. And it's just mind-boggling to me how polarizing those two positions are. And sometimes I say to clients, can you imagine you're this successful you're this successful without any insight or data? Imagine how successful you're going to be when you actually know what your customers want.
That's right. Right. Imagine that.
That your experience as well?
I mean, what's wild to me, I think what you're getting to is that there's typically some intuition ability. In some cases, we intuitively know who our people are because we engage with them. We just haven't done the process of operationalizing who they are and what makes up their constitution. On the other end, there's a bit of hubris. We go, I know who these people are, but you know nothing about them because you haven't engaged with them at all. And what this really boils down to is engagement. How engaged are you with your people? I often refer to this as sort of the demarcation between how we think about B2B, B2C, or B2G, business to government, right? We say, oh, these things are so different. They are so different. And I go, well, yeah, contextually, they are quite different. But what's the consistency in all of them? People. it's humanity, right? The same person who's buying your product in bulk for their company who runs procurement, that person is going down the shopping aisle to buy deodorant, right? And the same cognitive things that impact them in the supermarket are the same cognitive things that sway them when they're over the phone or via Zoom or via email. So getting close to who these people are, how they translate the world becomes a really powerful thing in our ability to connect with them in meaningful ways. But when we sort of walk around thinking we know them because of this false sense of understanding, we find ourselves really missing the mark. And it's exacerbated when we use the data we have at our disposal. We go, oh, we have all this data. I know who these people are. But yet we see those marketers continue to stumble. That's because they mistake information for intimacy. They have information on them, but don't know who they really, really are because they lack the intimacy.
Confirmation bias is also a powerful thing.
Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Yeah, absolutely.
So in the last few minutes we have, I just have to ask you your thoughts. You know, you spend time spearheading digital strategy for Beyonce. And you say this not really typically, I'm not a huge Beyonce fan, but a massive music industry history art kind of fan.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to statistics in terms of the changing demographics, Spotify, and the fact that hip hop still very much dominates in terms of listenership, but it actually has had the largest drop over the last 2 years in terms of listenership.
Mm-hmm.
And country music has had the largest gain. And surprisingly, we now have Cowboy Carter out, which, you know, is making the waves because Beyonce is stepping into country. And all I can think is, I've been hearing music industry people talk for the last year about the fact that hip hop is losing market share and country music is gaining market share. And then suddenly we now have this album out.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's a coincidence, but maybe it is. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, the top streaming songs of last year, if I'm not mistaken, came from country artists. So it was kind of already happening. I would liken it to any creative expression, any cultural production, that the genres that innovate the most are typically the ones to have more novel listening, right? More people want to come to it. They're like, what's new? What's happening? What's new? And for long, especially the last 20 years, I don't think there was any genre of music that was had more heterogeneity than hip hop. Right, there were different forms of the expression. There were different kinds of artists. There were Southern rap and East Coast rap. You had Detroit, holla, where I'm from. You had West Coast rap. You had all these things, and it was the heterogeneity of it all that kept driving its innovation.
And frankly, though, hip hop completely replaced rock and roll. Like
1000%.
Guitar-based rock and roll disappeared in 2004 or 5, replaced with hip hop. And
1000%.
And where I'm going is like, is country just basically the catch-all now for like a little bit of rock, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. Let's add some twang and Garth Brooks it up and go make some money.
Well, we're getting a lot of innovation in country music, right? Like Lil Nas X from a couple of years back, introducing more hip hop, a sonic aesthetic to genre. Different ways people are contorting and bending the genre creates more entry points for people to enter into it, right? People feel more welcomed to it. Beyonce definitely opens the door, holds the door for people to come in, which is really powerful. But if you put some of the biggest hip hop artists in the genre side by side together and play their music, it doesn't sound all that different. And therefore, you have a lack of innovation, lack of interest, and less people coming into the door.
So you think Taylor should go back to country then?
Well, I mean, Taylor, I feel like she's operating her own stratosphere.
She is Paul McCartney of this generation, I have to say.
I mean, in a lot of ways, she is. I mean, she has taken sort of complexity and emotion to simplicity and articulation that makes more people feel like their experience have been captured. And as a result, people feel very connected to her.
So Dr. Marcus Collins, he is, of course, the author of the book For the Culture, which you can pick up everywhere. And in the fall, it'll be out in paperback as well. Final question for you. Based on everything we've kind of covered today, what would be your number one tip or strategy to help us sell more?
We want to be better at selling things. We should be better at helping people. We like Clay Christensen, speaking of innovation, the Innovator's Dilemma, he brought forward the idea of jobs to be done. That people don't buy products because of products, because their value propositions. They buy it to get jobs done, their functional job, their emotional job, and their social job. The functional job is the things that I actually need to get done, the task. The emotional job is how I want to feel when I'm using it. The social job is how I'm seen by other people. And that rubric works both in B2B and B2C. In B2B, I have a job, a task needs to be done. And most products aren't that different from each other. So there's there's great parity between who can get that functional job done. But the way I'm seen in the organization is far different. And that influences my choices. The way I feel when I'm using the thing is far different, which influences the way I see my choices. So for a person who wants to sell more things, whether you're a company, a politician, an activist, entrepreneur, whatever the case may be, if we can help people get their jobs done, help people, don't sell them, help them, we drastically increase our likelihood of people adopting the behavior we want them to adopt.
Hey there, it's Mark. What did you think of the conversation with Marcus? This is one of my highlights. This one's going to go on our webpage as one of the episodes that people must hear, and I loved it. I hope you did as well. Now, before we get into the wrap up and the final points, I just wanted to share, if you really loved the strategic thinking that went into this episode, I want to point out that my strategic branding agency, Sales Loop, helps B2B business owners and their teams develop sound strategy and action plans to be able to meet these sales and marketing challenges head on, ultimately to help you sell more. So if you're interested in attracting and closing more high-value clients, or if you're struggling to stay top of mind with your current clients, if you need to recruit more A-plus talent, or you're looking to become the market leader in your space, you should really connect with me over on LinkedIn, send me a direct message, and we will set up a call. You can find my contact details in the show notes below. Now, let's get into the 3-point roundup where I share my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. Number 1, culture drives consumer behavior more effectively than demographics do. And it pains me to say, maybe even psychographics. I'm not giving up on psychographics yet. I mean, our whole business is focused on using them, finding them, and leveraging them. So I'm not giving up on them yet, but certainly if we can help take it a step further to culture, I think Marcus points out that there is work that can be done and there are insights that we can leverage to be able to boost our sales, to be able to target more effectively, create more unique messaging, stand out from the competition, and ultimately to be able to sell more. Key takeaway number 2, this is an ongoing theme here at How to Sell More. Effective marketing requires a deep understanding of your consumer and your customer's identity, thoughts, fears, what they love, what they desire, what they need to overcome. I can't stress it enough that we have to really intimately know our customers and our clients, perhaps even better than they know themselves. Because we are coming in and we understand the road ahead. We know what they do not know. We value what they have yet to come and value. And we understand the impact of our services and our products far greater than they do and possibly ever will. And so if we come into things with all of our knowledge and all of our experience and everything that we bring to the table, but we don't account for what's in it for them, their process, their approach, the challenges that they face each and every day, where the stuff that we do might be 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 10th on their list. If we don't understand how to apply everything that we bring, the magic we bring to their world and to their business and to their language, if we can't do that, oh gosh, it makes selling so much harder. And key lesson number 3, when we align our team and our culture and our values with our prospects' values and what it is that they are looking for most, when we align and snap that together, it not only allows us to go much further, much faster, because we are not constantly bumping up against a misalignment with how the work should be done, or what we should be focusing on, or why we charge what we charge, or how things work. We're not constantly having to re-educate and resell and realign everyone at every step along the way. Quick side note, last week I was down in Phoenix at a mastermind group, and I heard this line that if a client or customer is high maintenance at the start, they are not going to get any easier to work with. High maintenance people at the start are high maintenance people in the middle and high maintenance people at the end. And I think that perfectly captures Marcus's point that when we can align who we are with who our customers are in terms of how we go about business, it makes everything easier later. Not only can we do better work, but they will value the very work that we do, and it will make showing up to work and giving our customers and our clients are all worth it. So there you have it. Those were my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk, but I'm curious, what were yours? Did anything challenge you, challenge your perspective? Any big aha moments? I'd like to deep dive into this with you. I do that over on LinkedIn. And over there, I share even more insights, and I like to spark conversations and give tips about branding and strategy and marketing. And I like to challenge people's thinking, and I love to have my thinking challenged as well. I am Mark Drager. You can find my contact details in the episode show notes below, and you can go ahead and reach out to me. Let's connect over on LinkedIn. Now, while you're over there, you should also follow Marcus Collins for more thought-provoking and transformative perspectives. He will challenge your thinking. You can also check out his website, marktothec.com, and that's Mark with a C, not with a K like myself. If you want to get a copy of his book, For the Culture, The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be, you can get it everywhere books are available. And of course, you can find him over on Instagram at marktothec. Now, one last thing. If you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. And here's why. Every single week, we share tips and strategies just like those Marcus shared with us today to help ambitious B2B leaders, business owners, and their sales and marketing teams go out there and sell more. I'm Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next episode.